July 1944, northern France, a forward strip carved out of farmland and called an airfield. Nothing more than packed dirt, scorched grass, and rows of sweating fuel drums that leak the sharp metallic sweetness of high octane into the heat. In the center of that strip lies an American P-47 Thunderbolt that has been dragged in on its belly, paint-blistered skin, split metal still ticking as it cools. Oberleutnant Karl Weber stands over it with oil on his gloves and does not ask who flew it, does not ask who shot it down. He asks only one thing: how many seconds of fire can this thing throw in one breath? That is the question now. Not grace, not honor, not who outflew whom. How many seconds of fire? The old certainty: we control the sky because we can hear the sky, we read the sky, we manage the sky, is already cracked. The airfield is not silent. It hums and throbs with the memory of what just passed over it. Shock still hangs in the pressure inside the chest, the heavy-chested roar of that huge radial engine driving a wide paddle blade, prop chewing air so hard it felt like physical impact. It was not the thin, clean song of a duelist. It was a blunt, industrial sound that sat in your ribs and would not leave. Weber realizes with his jaw set tight that this thing did not arrive like a rival to be measured. It arrived like a hammer. The smell around the wreck is layered and close. Hot oil burned insulation, the bitter edge of scorched electrical wiring, and under that, the raw powder stink that clings around heavy gun ports after they have spat everything they had. Weber presses his palm against the busted skin of the Thunderbolt and feels thickness, not elegant, tensioned skin like his own machines, not careful light alloy balanced for perfect roll, but heavy plate and big rivets hide built to take punishment and still stay in one piece long enough to finish the strike. He leans in over the open cockpit and studies the American hardware. The switches are big, the gauges are fat, the levers are meant to be grabbed by a shaking hand in a vibrating cockpit and still work. Nothing about it is delicate. Everything about it says any trained crewman can jump in, hit power, and deliver violence without ceremony. In his head, Weber repeats the private oath he has carried for years. I will never call this ugly brute superior, but it does not land with the same iron it used to. Underneath the oath sits the fear that has been living in his lungs since spring, fear of being drowned by repetition. He is fighting the fact that this same roar will come back again and again and again until it grinds his line flat. A line of American ground talk runs through his memory like exposed wire. Patch it or pull another airframe, we are not waiting. He hates how clean that sounds, because his own unit will spend half a day nursing one wounded fighter back to service, aligning feed tuning, guns polishing, victory out of exhaustion, treating the machine like a living partner. The men who built this Thunderbolt talk about airplanes the way artillery crews talk about shells. In Weber's world, you fight like a surgeon to keep one airframe alive through one mission. In their world, the airframe is already treated as spent. The moment it lifts, just a delivery system for shock and fire. What matters is not that you force it down. What matters is that before your hands stop shaking, another one is already overhead. Hauptmann Riedel circles the Thunderbolt like a man walking around a fallen animal that offends him just by existing. The wreck sits half-propped on an ammunition crate, and a stack of wooden chocks, belly-torn, skin crazed with stress lines, gun smoke still baked into the leading edge of the wings. Riedel drags his gloved fingers across one of the wing roots and snorts through his teeth. Crude, he says. Heavy. Agricultural. A flying tractor. He says it like a curse and like a prayer at the same time, because what he is really saying is that this thing should not be beating us. Weber hears the words and does not argue out loud, but he also does not agree. Not anymore. Weber leans under the wing where the gun bay hangs open. The internal frame is not elegant, it is blunt. Feed chutes run straight and ugly, locked in with thick fasteners. The ammunition belts are laid in muscle-tight rows. He sees how they reload it. He can see the motion by instinct. You swing the panel, you seat the belt, you close the latch. There is no delicate handwork, no ritual. No one is polishing anything. No one is talking about perfect harmonization of guns to pilot feel. Everything about this bay is screaming, one thing: keep it lethal, keep it fed, get it back up. He traces one of the chutes with 2 fingers, and for a moment he is not thinking about marksmanship at all. He is thinking about turnaround time. He has spent years inside a world where the pilot and the machine share a single identity. You speak about a specific airframe the way you speak about a living partner. You say her quirks, her roll rate, her sweet spot under throttle, the way she talks to you through the stick. You treat your fighter like an extension of your own nervous system. You defend her, and she defends you. You survive together because you are both sharp, both tuned, both worthy. That is what his training told him. That is what his commanders told him. That is what every briefing told him, in calm, clipped voices through every winter and every loss. You and the machine are one blade. Now he is crouched inside the wing root of an American strike fighter that does not care about any of that. He realizes with cold clarity that whoever built this thing did not design it to be loved. They designed it to be used. Hard. Fast. Repeatedly. The pilot is not sacred. The airframe is not sacred. Only the mission is sacred. The machine is a carrier for fire. The pilot is a delivery driver for that fire. When one carrier is gone, you roll another one forward. No grief, no ceremony. No attachment. Swap out the belt. Swap out the barrel. Swap out the whole machine. Keep pressure on the grid square. Keep presence over the column. Keep the roar above the heads of the German infantry, so that they never lift their faces and never steady their hands. Weber feels something in his throat tighten when that thought lands. It is not anger. It is recognition. Funke Dietz calls from the edge of the revetment headset around his neck, cables trailing through the dirt face flushed. He is angry at the static coming through the net, and he is angry at the way his own voice keeps breaking off mid-word. Dietz is supposed to be the calm one. He is supposed to hold the net clean pass, position calls, and intercept warnings in clipped phrases that sound like control. That is the point of radio discipline. Radio discipline is how you prove even to yourselves that the sky still belongs to you. But Dietz keeps rubbing at his left ear and wincing because every time a thunderbolt comes screaming low over the trees, the low-frequency shove of that huge radial engine and the slap of that wide paddle blade prop just flattens his transmission, crushes it, drowns it in a single pulsing wall of noise. The sound is not just loud, it is heavy. It sits on you. It forces your shoulders down and your jaw tight and your words into fragments. That sound was never in the flight school manuals. No one taught them how to command the air while choking on someone else's engine note. Weber watches Dietz hunch and curl around his own headset, like a man protecting his skull from falling bricks, and a simple, dangerous thought arrives. The enemy is not only tearing holes in wings, the enemy is tearing holes in the command structure of the air itself. The humiliation is not that a German pilot can be outflown. The humiliation is that German organization, German order, German voice is being stepped on by brute noise. That is not a duel. That is an industrial override. Weber feels heat under his collar and realizes that what he is witnessing is bigger than pilot skill. It is bigger than individual courage. It is a system-level assault. It is a factory screaming through a loudspeaker telling the battlefield who is in charge. Riedel keeps circling, keeps talking about weight and drag, and Wasted Metal keeps insisting that a machine this fat should not survive a proper interception. Weber wants to believe him. He wants to stand up, wipe his hands, and agree that they will solve this by flying cleaner, by shooting smarter, by tightening formation discipline until it is razor wire. That is the reflex. Blame the man in the cockpit. Blame the man on the stick. Blame the split-second choice. But Weber has seen the second wave. He has seen the third wave. He has seen a fighter trailing smoke still rake a road with gunfire and then claw west, and before the echo of that pass was gone, another one was already dropping in. You cannot blame a single pilot for that. You cannot even blame a single squadron. You are looking at a pipeline. You are looking at a nation pushing metal and fuel and ammunition into the front faster than you can burn it. He understands the most dangerous truth of the day, and it hits him with a kind of cold relief because it finally explains why he feels this tired. He is not losing because he flew badly. He is not losing because he made the wrong turn, or fired one beat too early, or failed to cover his wingman in the perfect textbook arc. He is losing because the other side has built a war in which individual excellence is irrelevant. The other side has stripped the romance out of combat flight and replaced it with throughput. They have divorced the machine from the man. They have divorced pride from survival. They have made the act of showing up over and over and over the only thing that matters. And once that is true, perfection stops being a weapon and starts being ballast. Weber lifts into the climb with his section tucked in so tight you could draw a line along the wing roots and never see daylight. Altitude discipline holds, throttle discipline holds, ammunition discipline holds. Every motion is measured, every correction is controlled, every burst is rationed. The radio is lean and spare, only task words, no panic. This is how they were taught to fight, and how they were told they would survive, by flying like a blade edge, not like a hammer. They roll down toward the column that is trying to move east along a sunburned French farm road, a mix of trucks and horse teams, and low tarpaulin-covered shapes that are trying very hard not to look like fuel. The first American strike pair appears just ahead of the line, dropping into the treetops, fast guns already twitching for angle on the convoy. Weber plants himself between the attackers and the column and comes in sharp from above their high side. He does not waste ammunition. He fires in pulses, clean, short-aimed. One American fighter jerks off line hard, trailing a smear of smoke and climbing out wide. The second pulls out shallow, forced to break off the run and haul away low to the west. On the road below, men scatter off the ditches and then crawl back up out of them alive. For a brief, vicious moment it looks like proof. For a brief moment it is still possible to believe that discipline beats impulse. Then the air changes, and it changes fast. Weber is still resetting position and breathing through the G-load when the next wave arrives without warning, lower, meaner, heavier. He does not even get a clean call from Dietz because the sound hits first. That low body punch of the big radial engines and paddle blade props is already in the convoy's bones before the shapes are even visible. Thunderbolts come in, almost scraping the tree line, and there is no pretty angle now, no dueling arc, no elegant roll. They do not even try to fence with Weber's section. They go straight for the road. The fire that comes off their wings is not careful. It is not polite. It falls in sheets, wide and continuous, the kind of burst density that sounds less like guns and more like metal being ripped apart in one long scream. Trucks hop on their suspensions, canvas jumps and tears, dirt and splinters, and glass whip out sideways and slam back into the ditches as if the ground itself is detonating in strips. The men down there do not even try to shoot back. They just flatten. Weber swings hard to chase one of the attackers and immediately has to break off because another one is already rolling in behind the first, almost on its tail, almost wheel to tail wheel. There is no gap to exploit, no breath to take, no pause to reset. The second pass lands before the echo of the first one has even finished bouncing off the hedgerow. Turnaround time stops being a number on a board and becomes a physical terror. The old rhythm said, you drive them off and then you have a window. You patch, you breathe, you move. That window is gone. The new rhythm says you beat one back and the next one is already here, and the next one after that is already rolling in on the same compass line like it is all one single continuous machine that just happens to be wearing different serial markings. Weber feels his own training betray him. He has been told that if he executes the pattern correctly, if he holds the geometry, he will at least buy his ground column a little clear air. He has done exactly that. He has flown exactly as taught. And the result is nothing. The result is that the ground is still being cut open in front of him by fresh arrivals that did not even exist in his windscreen 10 seconds ago. He pulls hard lungs, burning eyes, stinging, and it hits him in the gut that his section is not outflown. His section is simply outnumbered in time. On the roadside, Unteroffizier Meissner is crouched behind a field gun mount that is supposed to scare off low strafers. He has ears full of dust and a throat full of burned propellant. He saw one of the Thunderbolts on the second pass take a string of hits from ground fire, clean hits walking across the fuselage and engine, cowling flashes popping along the skin, and for a heartbeat he thought, good, finally, down you go. Instead, the American machine just dipped, vomited black smoke in a dirty trail, and kept raking the road with heavy fire all the way through the run. It clawed back up over the hedgerow at the end of the convoy like a wounded animal that refused to fall. It kept climbing, coughing flame, dragging itself west. Meissner reaches for another ammunition can and fumbles it. His hands are shaking. Not a little nervous tremor, a hard misfire in the muscles. He cannot get his thumb to settle on the latch. He cannot force the fine motor control he has always trusted. He keeps telling himself to get a grip, and his own fingers answer with a spasm. Around him the air still throbs from that engine note. Around him the convoy is still pinned to the ditch line. Around him another roar is already building again from the tree line. Weber watches all of it from overhead, and the sick clarity lands heavy and cold. Perfect flying is suddenly starting to look like ritual. Hold formation. Hit your marks. Save who you can. Die tidy. It is beautiful in the air and it is useless on the ground. Evening sits low on the strip and every surface is vibrating with exhaustion. Fuel stink, cordite heat coming off metal that has been run too hard for too long. The ground crews are dragging canvas over the machines that can still roll, throwing nets, shoving battered noses under whatever shadow exists, hurrying in that fast, quiet way of men who understand that staying visible is now a form of suicide. Weber walks the line with his throat raw and his ears still ringing from the day. He has been telling himself all through the last hour that the pressure is tapering, that they have bought a sliver of darkness, that for one brief stretch of sky they have pushed the American attackers off. He needs that to be true. His body needs it, his men need it, his doctrine needs it. Then the air changes again. It starts the way it always starts now, not as a dot, not as a call on the net, but as weight. A low, blunt vibration rolls over the tree line, crawls under the corrugated metal of the hangar roofs, and steps straight down onto the sternum. It is that same radial roar, that same paddle blade prop grabbing air in huge, violent bites, the same shock sound that does not sound like a challenger announcing a duel, but like a machine announcing terms. Men on the line duck without orders. Dietz, still angry, still half-deaf, whips his head up, and then clamps a palm over his headset, like he is trying to hold his skull together. The sound fills the strip before the silhouette even clears the hedgerow. That is what breaks Weber. Not the threat of guns, not the risk of the next pass. The simple fact that this heavy-chested roar now arrives as casually as weather. On every other day of his career, reflex had a shape. Reflex meant call the section to readiness. Form the pattern wheels up in disciplined pairs, climb through the proper arc, hold escort lines over the ground unit, and make the strike aircraft pay for every meter of approach. Reflex meant you answer intrusion with clean geometry, because clean geometry is proof that you are still in control. That is what he has always barked into the net. That is what he has drilled into younger flyers with a voice like steel. Hold formation, defend properly, do not panic. Do not scatter. Scattering is how you die. The roar drops lower and closer, and something in him snaps out of sequence. He does not call for formation. He does not even think the words. He hears himself shout full throat across the strip. Scatter, get under cover, keep anything that can still fly. Do not try to prove anything. The sentence is out in the open air before he has even finished understanding that his mouth is the one that formed it. Ground crew bolts for revetments. Men dive under maintenance jacks. Someone physically shoves a half-fueled fighter backward by the tail just to get the nose behind a stack of fuel drums, which is insanity and also the only thing that makes sense. Pilots who in any other hour would already be sprinting for cockpits instead slam themselves flat into the mud behind wheels and braces. No one argues. No one asks for clearance to scramble. They obey that order like it is oxygen, and Weber feels it hit him. It is not fear of dying. He has made peace with dying more times than he can count. It is not even fear of losing the airfield. It is something worse and colder. His heart rate spikes so fast it feels like a punch to the throat. His breath goes short and shallow like the air got thinner without warning. His tongue sticks for a second to the back of his teeth. He has to blink hard because there is a pressure behind his eyes that is not smoke. His body is reacting like he just stepped off a ledge. He knows exactly why. He hears his own voice still bouncing off sheet metal and dirt, scatter, hide, keep anything that can still fly, and he knows what that means. It means he did what he swore he would never do. He told his men that survival matters more than form. He told them that preservation of hardware matters more than honor code. He told them not to stand up and be counted, but to get small and stay uncounted. He told them to abandon the perfect shape. All day long, through every briefing of his life, the idea was hammered in that the fighter pilot and the machine were a single, proud instrument, and that instrument proved national superiority in the sky by flying correctly under pressure. Hold the line, hold the angle, hold the code. That was not decoration. That was identity. That was who they were. That was how they looked at themselves in the mirror. He has just thrown that in the dirt with one shouted command, and his own nervous system understands the betrayal before his mind finishes naming it. He can feel his heart trying to climb out of his chest to get away from what he said. Hauptmann Riedel is standing not far from him, still in his flight jacket face streaked with dust and dried sweat, one glove tucked under his arm, the other hanging loose at his side. Riedel turns toward Weber so slowly it almost hurts to watch. He is not shouting, he is not raging. His eyes are wide in a way Weber has never seen on that face. For a long breath, they just look at each other across the open strip, while the Thunderbolt roar drags a long, rolling shadow over them and then fades out to the west. The look is not disbelief that the Americans came back again. They both expected that. The look is disbelief that the words leave them scatter and hide instead of form up and hold. Riedel's mouth opens like he is about to speak and then closes again, because there is nothing clean to say. Weber can read the thought anyway. Heresy. What you just ordered is heresy. Weber swallows against a throat gone dry and understands that this is the line he never wanted to cross. It is not about being afraid. He will fly again at first light if the machine will start. He will go back up even if the odds are worse tomorrow than they were today. That part of him has not moved. The shame is not cowardice. The shame is irrelevance. He has just admitted out loud in front of his men, in front of his commanding officer, that the code that built him no longer matters in the face of what is happening over their heads. He has admitted the sky is no longer a duel in which form and courage can tilt the balance. He has admitted the sky is now an environment that punishes visibility itself. He has admitted that keeping an airframe alive to fight again later is more valuable than showing the enemy a perfect intercept today. He has admitted that the oath he carried in his chest is worth less than one more functional engine in the morning. There is a kind of hollow silence after the roar fades. Not true silence because the strip still hisses with cooling engines and far-off small arms and the restless clink and creak of metal settling, but the human silence of men who just realized the rules changed without their permission. Weber feels that silence land on his shoulders like weight. He stares back at Riedel and sees for the first time that the older man is not angry because Weber is weak. He is wounded because Weber has said aloud what Riedel refuses to let himself say. The doctrine is not dented, it is discarded. The sky has moved on without asking them. Twilight settles over the strip like smoke that refuses to lift. The light is low and dirty, and the heat of the day is still trapped in the metal. The captured Thunderbolt sits where they left it, propped awkwardly, belly-torn frame, scarred from forced landing oil, bleeding in slow, dark drops that shine at the edges and then turn dull. The air around it still smells burned. Not sharp and clean like fresh fuel, but deep and bitter, the kind of burned that seeps into canvas and skin and hair, a layered reek of scorched insulation and cooked powder and hot engine oil left too long under strain. The strip is quieter than it has been all day. No scramble shouts, no panic, just clinks of cooling metal and a faint constant hiss from a line that never quite sealed. Weber stands close enough to feel the last warmth, still breathing out of the cowling. He lifts one gloved hand and lays it against the skin. The first time he touched this machine, he called it ugly in his head. He told himself thick meant stupid. He told himself heavy meant wasteful. He told himself this was proof of American laziness and lack of refinement. Now, under this fading light with the ground finally still, the word that comes to him is not ugly. The word is inevitable. The skin is not delicate. It is not the thin, tuned surface of something built to dance. It is plate. It is armor by another name. The rivet lines are bold, almost crude, marching along the fuselage with no attempt to hide the work. The gun bays sit swollen and unapologetic in the wings' fat mouths made to swallow belts of heavy rounds and spit them out again in slabs. There is nothing polite about it. There is nothing discreet. It is not pretending to be a dueling weapon. It is telling the world exactly what it is. Weber drags his palm along the line of rivets and feels a kind of recognition that tastes like surrender, and also in a way he does not want to admit relief. He is tired of pretending that grace will save him. This machine does not pretend anything. Meissner walks up slow hands, still unsteady from earlier, fingers marked with black streaks he did not bother to wipe off. He does not salute. He does not stand at attention. The strip is past that now. He stops beside Weber and looks at the Thunderbolt like a farmer studying a broken plough that still did the job before it cracked. For a moment, neither of them talks. Then, Weber says it, voice low and flat, like he is reading a line from a report that has already been signed. "We build swordsmen." Meissner answers without laughing because nothing about this is funny. "They build sledgehammers with wings." Weber nods, once eyes still on the torn panel lines, and a sledgehammer can be stamped out again and again. The words hang there. Not whispered, not confessional in the personal sense, not "I am afraid" and not "I am tired" and not "I am broken." The tone is colder. He is filing Doctrine. This is not a moment of wounded pride. This is not a pilot crying over a bad day. This is a ranking officer of a once terrifying air arm standing in front of enemy hardware and acknowledging that his entire belief structure has been outpaced by industrial math. Weber has always believed in the single machine paired with the single pilot. He has always believed that the airframe and the man merge into a single edge, sharpened together, irreplaceable together, mourned together when lost. That belief carried weight. It gave death meaning. A fallen pilot was a story. A downed fighter was a name. The system he is staring at now does not even bother pretending to honor that. This system treats each machine as timed firepower on a schedule. This system treats each pilot as the means by which that schedule is met. This is the final tally. The truth that every Thunderbolt is not an ace. Every Thunderbolt is not a knight in a duel. Every Thunderbolt is a slot on a board that reads availability over target grid time on station cycle rate. They are not sending heroes. They are sending intervals. Weber realizes that this is why the second wave always came, and why the third wave sometimes came before the smoke from the second wave had even finished drifting sideways. He had been looking for faces, for rivals, for individual signatures in the air, the way he was trained to look at the nose of an enemy fighter and say, "That is him, the one from last week. I know how he climbs and I know how he rolls. I can beat him if I can get him alone." But there is no alone anymore. The pressure is scheduled, not personal. The roar arrives on time. It does not matter who is sitting in the cockpit. It does not matter whether the previous pilot made it back smoking or blew apart in a hedgerow. The sound returns. The fire returns. The presence returns. The sky is being managed like a supply route, not like a duel. That thought does not enrage him. It drains him. Meissner crouches by the wing route and runs a thumb along a scorch mark where ground fire kissed and chewed and still failed to break the frame. He shakes his head once, not in disbelief but in a kind of grudging acknowledgement. He mutters that he has watched their own fighters fall out of the air for less damage than this. He says it quietly, almost respectfully. Weber does not argue. He cannot. He saw the same thing. He watched an American machine belching smoke and coughing flame still rake a road and then claw away west like a wounded animal, determined to finish the task before collapsing. He watched it survive long enough to matter, and before the echo of that pass had died, another one had already rolled in. That is the part that finally makes his shoulders sag. Not that the enemy can build a monster, that they can build infinite monsters and send them in sequence until you break, not because you are inferior in skill, but because you are mortal and you need to breathe, and their schedule does not. Weber lowers his head, not in shame at personal failure, and not in grief for a fallen comrade, but in recognition that the machine in front of him is not a rival, it is a template. He has been fighting ghosts. He has been throwing his life and the lives of the men under him at a principle that the battlefield has quietly thrown away. All the pride, all the ritual, all the talk of perfection under pressure, all the careful ammunition discipline, all the sermon about clean escort lines and textbook intercept arcs, it all feels in this fading light like sentimental waste. Beautiful waste. Waste that gets men killed. Waste that cannot be justified by results anymore. He feels a hard, cold anger rise not at the Americans, but at the lie he has been ordered to keep telling his pilots, the lie that if they just fly cleaner, they can stop what is happening. He knows now that is not true. Clean flying is admirable. Clean flying is noble. Clean flying cannot stop a factory. For the first time he says it plainly, even if only to Meissner and to the metal in front of him. It is not that we are cowards. It is not that they are better pilots. It is that they built a way of war where my code does not matter. Night sits shallow and unsettled over the field, and Weber is alone for the first time in hours, hunched over a rough table made from a door laid across fuel crates, a lantern throwing a tired cone of yellow across paper that has already picked up oil thumbprints and grit. His flight log is open, but he is not recording altitude, ammunition, count, turn, behavior, throttle, discipline, angle of attack, all the things that used to define a good sortie and used to prove that a man had done his job. He is writing something else. He is writing timing. He is writing intervals. He is writing how long it took between the first attack pass and the next appearance. He is writing how soon a fresh strike arrived over the same road after the wounded one limped away trailing smoke. He is not describing flying skill anymore. He is measuring reappearance rate. For the first time he writes down in ink that drags a little because his hand is still stiff from the stick that they cannot scare the Americans by shooting one of them down. He had believed for years that loss would teach respect, that if you hit them hard enough they would hesitate, back off, recalculate. That belief is dead. He puts it on the page and it looks like an admission in a court. We cannot frighten them with individual loss anymore. He does not mean courage. He does not mean they are fearless heroes. He means the system behind them does not care. The system behind them replaces them so fast that killing one is not deterrence. Killing one is weather, rain, not even a pause. He leans back and stares at the lantern for a long, slow breath, and then keeps writing, because now that the shape of the truth is visible, he cannot pretend not to see it. The war in the air is no longer about who can fly better circles around whom. It is not about the duel. It is not about two men meeting in open sky and settling the outcome with discipline and nerve. That world is already gone. Today proved it, and tomorrow will prove it again. The air war has crossed over into something colder. It belongs now to whoever can keep putting hard-hitting airframes over the same strip of ground again and again and again without meaningful interruption until the men on that ground stop moving, not because they were all killed, but because they are too rattled to raise their heads. He writes that too. He forces himself to define it in language so simple that even headquarters will not be able to twist it back into poetry. The balance of power is not victory per engagement. The balance of power is frequency. Frequency of heavy attack presence over friendly troops per unit of time. He rewrites it under that line in plainer terms. How fast can they get another armed attacker over my soldiers' heads after I shoot one down? He circles that sentence. He circles it twice. He knows what he is doing. He is replacing pride with math. He is replacing myth with a ratio, availability per hour of frontline demand. He looks at those words and feels something inside his chest loosen and drop like a buckle, finally giving way. It is ugly. It is honest. It is the only thing that matches what he saw. He keeps his pen on the page, and without looking up, says the truth out loud into the empty room, almost like he is briefing a pilot who has not yet learned the lie. Perfection can win a duel, availability wins a war, and by late 44, availability already had wings, and it was hunting us. After that, he does not write anything else. He does not close the book. He just sits there with his shoulders forward and his hands still, and for the first time since he first took combat orders, he feels what it means to outlive your own doctrine. He is not proud. He is not broken. He is something colder. He understands.